Okay, today we're looking at lesson 6.9, problem solving, practice addition and subtraction, and we've been working with fractions, so it's probably going to be a lot of steps by the time we find common denominators and all of those things. So we're going to first unlock the problem. The Diaz family is cross-country skiing the Big Tree Trails, which have a total length of 4 miles. Yesterday, they skied a 7/10 mile. The 7/10 mile Oak Trail. Today, they skied the 3/5 mile Pine Trail. They plan to ski all of the Big Tree Trails. How many more miles do they have left to ski? So the first question is, what do I need to find? I need to find the distance, what? The distance, yeah, how much they have left to ski. The distance they have left to ski. So we need to find the distance they have left to ski. What information do I need to use? I need to use the distance. What did we know? That they have already skied. Distance they have already skied and the total distance they plan to ski. And then in your third box, says how I use this information. I can work backwards starting with the total distance. And subtract each distance they have already skied to find the amount they have left. So this is a problem-solving strategy that you could use if you have a problem like this, to work backward. Addition and subtraction are inverse operations. What does that mean? They undo each other or the opposite of each other. By working backward and using the same numbers, one operation undoes the other. Write an equation. Miles skied yesterday. So let's look at their thing. It says yesterday they skied 7/10 mile, and today they are skiing 3/10 mile. 3/5 mile, sorry. So 7/10 plus 3/5 plus our missing distance is going to be equal to 4 total miles. And it told us that in the story problem, that the Big Tree Trails, which have a total length of 4 miles. Okay, so if we use our backwards problem solving thing, what are we going to start with? We're going to work backwards. We're going to start with our total. We're going to subtract. Well, if you're going to work backwards, I think you should subtract 3/5 first. And then 7/10 is going to equal m, this unknown. Okay, so what is 4 minus 3/5? I have 4 and I'm going to take away 3/5. I better find some fractions. So 3, and since this is 5th, I'm going to rename that 1 to 5/5 minus 3/5. 3 and 2/5 mile when we take the 3/5 mile away. Now we've got to subtract 7/10. So now we've got to make that 2/5 into tenths. What are we going to multiply 2/5 by to get it to be tenths? 2. So if I take 2/5 times 2, I'm going to get 4/10. Does everybody agree? So now I have 3 and 4/10. And I'm going to come over here, whoops, and subtract 7/10. Can I subtract 7/10? So we're going to have to use our renaming skills. This is probably the most frustrating part to you. So now I have 10/10 that I need to add 4/10 to make 14/10. Now 14 minus 7 is 10/10, and 2 take away nothing is 2. So today they have to ski, to finish up they have to ski 2 and 7/10 miles. So the family has 2 and 7/10 miles left to ski. Okay, so at the bottom of the page, page 277, it says, explain how you know your answer is reasonable. Let's look back at our answer. Whoops. And we have 2 and 7/10 mile. Well, one way we can know is that less than our original. We wouldn't want a number that is larger than the total miles they were ever going to ski, right? So we can say it is reasonable because I know my answer is reasonable because the unknown distance, 2 and 7/10, is less than the total distance. Okay, so written out that might sound something like this. I know my answer is reasonable because the unknown distance, 2 and 7/10, is less than the total distance. So go ahead and stop your recording if you need to finish writing. Okay, here we go on page 278. We're going to try another problem. It says, as part of their study of Native American basket weaving, Leah's class is making wicker baskets. Leah starts with a strip of wicker 36 inches long. Wicker is a thin piece of wood, maybe off of bamboo or something like that. From the strip, she first cuts one piece but does not know its length, and then cuts a piece that is 6 1/2 inches long. The piece left is 7 3/4 inches long. What is the length of the first piece she cut from the strip? So what do we need to find? The length of the first piece cut from the strip. Go ahead and stop your recording. Okay. How will I use this information? I can work backward by starting with the total length of the strip, which was what? 36 inches long. And subtracting the length given to find the first piece cut from the strip. Go ahead and stop the recording and get that down. Box. What information do I need? Or sorry, this is your second box. Oh, they have them switched. Okay, if you did not write it in the correct box, please just draw an arrow back and forth so that you know where it should be. So this is the middle box, really. If you wrote that middle part in the last box, just draw an arrow from the question to where you answered it. What information do I need to use? The length of the original strip, the 2 lengths given from the original strip. Okay, so now we move to that little box on your paper that says solve the problem. It says first, write an equation. So when we're going to write our equation, we're going to start with something that represents what we don't know. So we're going to make that be an X. Okay? You need to do this over in the left-hand side of your box. Okay? Left-hand side of your box. And what do we know? That one was 6 1/2 inches long, and one was 7 3/4 inches long. And if we add all that together, it is going to make 36. Okay? So that's your equation. You need to write down that equation. Okay, so now we're going to work backwards to solve for x. So we're going to rewrite this so that our equation equals x. So we're going to start with 36. So below where you wrote your equation, you need to write this. Minus, remember we're going to use the inverse operation, 7 3/4 minus 6 1/2. And that is going to now equal x. Okay, so please write that. Okay, when we work equations, we need to use our order of operations. So the order of operations says parentheses. There are no parentheses, there are no exponents, there is no multiplying or dividing. So we're going to add and subtract as we work across our equation. So the first thing we have to do is 36 minus 7 3/4. Now, 36 minus 7 3/4. Again, we have to come up, with some fractions here. So, we're going to cross this out. It's going to be 35, and since this is fourths, we're going to have 4/4. And 4/4 minus 3/4 is 1/4, and 15 minus 7 is 8, leaving us 28 1/4. Go ahead and stop your recording and do that. Actually, if we're working across our equation, we're going to go ahead and put a parenthesis here, and we're going to make this say 35 4/4 minus 7 3/4. We're going to close our parentheses, minus 6 1/2 is equal to x. Now we know that when we performed, so now we're going to perform what was in those parentheses, that we got 28 1/4 minus 6 1/2 to equal x. Okay? What can we change 6 1/2 to find a common denominator? Fourths. Okay, so 6 1/2 is how many fourths? We have to multiply it by 2. So we're going to have 2 fourths. Can I do 1/4 minus 2/4? No. So you might have to go across and do this over on the edge of your paper. 28 1/4 minus 6 2/4. Can't do that. So I'm going to regroup one here. So now I have 4/4 plus 1/4, which is 5/4. And 5 minus 2 is 3/4. 7 minus 6 is 1. And then 21 when we subtract. So in our equation, this might look like 28 1/4 minus, oops, sorry, not 28 1/4. What did we get when we had to regroup? 27 5/4 minus 6 2/4 is still equal to x. And then we subtract these two, we're going to get 21 3/4 is equal to x. So the first piece that was cut was 21 3/4 inches. Now, if that moved too fast for you, please do stop your recording. Okay, I want you to go ahead, and this says Caitlin, but your paper should say, well, I guess it does say Caitlin Crowd. So I want you to go ahead and work this number 1, the first, next, and solve, and so down to the number 2. And I want you to turn back the recording and check it. All right, if you work this through on your own, you should have found an answer of 1 13/20. You took your equation over here, rewrote it. Here, we changed got a common denominator of 20. When we subtracted that, we got 3 13/20. And then 3 13/20 minus 2 equals x, and 3 13/20 minus 2 is equal to 1 13/20.